Hi to all Tamiya retro fans. I really like the attention my old King Cab is getting. So I decided to make a video just to show you around the car what it can do. So from the outside, that was very important to me. It just looks like a stock King Cab. With one noticeable exception, I never liked the blue here. I painted this black even as a child. I liked it black. And by the way, of course, this is a Team Blue Groove replacement body. I still have my old one. This is my original body I painted as a boy, also in black. And I made the major mistake of having no idea that you need to paint this body with Lexan colors. So I painted this with some normal plastic colors and now it's all falling apart. So I had to buy a new body. And Team Blue Groove, I really like it. Of course, I know it is not as detailed as the original, but from a distance, it looks fairly identical. Other than that, I actually put on the stock tires. They're in decent shape for their age. I never raced this or abused it terribly. So it looks stock aside from the fact that you see the light shining, and that's it. On a first glance, you don't realize that this is a Traxxas gearbox. It has Traxxas lower arms, Traxxas axles, and Traxxas uprights. So everything in the back is basically Traxxas, and I will make a video about how I modified the chassis so I can actually accommodate the Traxxas gearbox. But it doesn't jump right into your face. I just disconnected the motor for safety reasons here. So when I start to open up, you see some other changes I made. Obviously, one big change you might see right away are the drivers, which have an articulated driver head. And of course, first thing is the light system. So when I built this, I decided I want to have everything as reversible as possible by any means. So everything here is hold in place by Velcro, and you see it's already dirty because I really drove that car with that setup and it stayed in place quite nicely. So it's Velcroed in place, and I definitely did not want to have any LEDs sticking out of the new body, especially on the front. So I decided I had to make my own light buckets. And I use a material that I actually used fairly often now, and I really love it. I have no idea what the actual name is, but it's this kind of plastic, and I got it in a big sheet. And it's extremely sturdy, so you can build everything out of this thing. But as long as you scratch it, you give it a scratch, and you can directly break it. And it's perfect. You can make straight lines. You can build so much stuff out of this. And so all these light buckets here are made out of this plastic material. And they are, again, just hold in place via Velcro. So if something gets broken, I can just get this out and replace them. One aspect of my light installation, I did not want to see this kind of LEDs inside the car light, because this is supposed to be a 1980s truck, and they had this kind of Fresnel lenses on their car. And I searched for a while, and then I found this material that's actually made for bathroom windows to avoid see-through, and it has kind of a Fresnel effect. It emulates the look of an old car light quite nicely. And then we come to maybe the main attraction here, the drivers and their actual working dashboard. And while the driver head is actually connected mechanically to the steering servo, the dash reacts directly to the remote control. Before I open everything up, I show you the dirt cover I made here. It looks like carbon, it is not. but it's all removable, so I actually can get the dirt out of this car by just lifting these plates out, and they're just held in place by magnets. And one general rule I made was I want to drill as little holes as possible into the original chassis. And so everything is held in place by magnets, and I just use a shoe glue to hold these magnets in place. So here we are down at the bare bones of the car. So the RC receiver sits down there behind the battery and the ESC. And I used a fairly practical product now when I added all my additional stuff. This is this kind of cable hub, which actually plugs into the receiver and just multiplies the outputs. And with two of these, the receiver comes here and all the signals are distributed from here. And this means going to the servo, going to the Arduino for the display, and going to the lights. And when you look at the light installation kit, you usually have this big back and forth cable tree here that is actually not really necessary when you have this cable hub, because all it needs is a plus and minus and the two signals from steering and throttle. So I basically rewired this, made one center plug that actually just plugs right in here in one go. No back and forth, no cable mess. It's just one single cable connection. What the RC receivers use as a plug is just standard electronic stuff. So you can get these kind of plugs in all sizes, and they all fit together. So there are cables going to the front, which then end up at the Arduino, the computer hub of this car. Still sounds kind of silly. The Arduino sits inside here in this small plastic box, and I just covered it as good as I can in the area before the front shock tower. It has some padding in the front. It can be accessed by removing this plate here, and it's all held in place by magnets. The box itself uses up quite a lot of space, so I'm not really happy. I might change that in the future if I can get this sealed in another way, because I want to avoid that the Arduino is getting dirty. So what's coming here is it's the power directly from the RC, from the receiver. These cables bring the signal from steering and throttle. And I have a power line coming from the main battery. The Arduino is not powered by this, but it is measured. So it actually displays the voltage of the main battery on the display of the driver. The output of the Arduino here is I2C bus line. It actually has only one client, and that is an I2C OLED screen. And of course, it's a bit complicated to access all this. The USB connection is in the front. I need to open this. So I have here my test rig. It is a second Arduino with the same OLED screen, and I can test the software here before I copy it to the Arduino inside the car. Oh, there's a screw here. That's not good. So next is the mechanics that drive the head of the driver. I wasn't sure if this is the best idea that I came up with here, because it's actually a completely mechanical solution. So what happens is there is the main steering, and then there's a second rod going backwards and ending up in this pole. Then there's a universal joint connecting the head of the driver to this shaft. So this is a completely mechanical solution. I can turn the reels and it will turn the full mechanic here. I think there's enough wiggle room here so it doesn't block the steering when the head is jammed for whatever reason. That's it. Now the chassis is closed up again. And of course, next thing is connecting the drivers. So the drivers are this beautiful Tamiya part that is actually, I think it's made for the Lancia Delta, but it fits so perfectly into the King Cab. I obviously had to cut the back because the original back was much longer. It was made for a completely different car. I'm not an artist, my painting, I'm not really happy about the painting, but it's okay. So again, the downside reveals the magic. First, here is a universal joint that actually just slides into the pole coming up from the steering. And that obviously turns the head. And second is this front assembly that holds in the screen. And I went full with just screwing things in place. I want to avoid any kind of glue because I expect this small screen to get broken. So I made a small screen assembly that sandwiches the PCB that's attached to the screen and the screen itself, which is behind that lower panel, just right into place. If the screen is broken, all I need to do is remove 3 screws, pull out that screen and add a new one. There's a magnet holding in the set screw for the driver head, but this magnet has a main purpose as well. Actually, it is the bay to actually mount the GoPro camera, which just fits in here like a glove. It's perfect. And the back wall of the King Cab comes down just right here at the screen. There is no other holding thing holding this camera in place. It's just stable as a rock inside the cockpit. And because this is a magnet, I just can hold it like this and it snaps into place. And I just added this yellow bar to hide the cut here because it looks a bit, yeah, looks like a cut. It is a cut. Add this here. Make sure that the universal joint is just sliding down that hole. Perfect. Just here I need to connect the cable of the I2C bus to the Oled screen assembly. Just one plug, 4 pins. That's it. That should stay in place. So I need to give it now a quick system check. I should see the lights come on and the screen booting up. Yes. So that works. It reads the throttle and makes a nice display show out of it. When I steer, you have a turn signal indicator. Of course, this corresponds with the actual turn signal of the car itself. And on channel 3 right now, I have a system reset, and you actually get a readout of how many startup procedures I had and what is the overall runtime of this car. 8.3 volts. It might be a bit off. I've never really adjusted it. But actually, when you have the engine connected and you throttle up, you see the voltage actually drop down from the load to the battery. And I plan on having another trigger here on another channel of the remote. I want to see a voltage graph and maybe a speed graph. So, and let's have some fun with some graphical display on this completely useless dashboard. Okay, everything is fine and working. Again, now with the drivers in place, I can show off how the GoPro works. Just open the GoPro bay, place the GoPro in the car and close the lid. It's actually as simple as that, because the shape of the car is just perfect. The GoPro sits right inside behind the drivers, makes perfect shots, and it doesn't interfere with the driver head of that is actually moving, of course. Speaking of GoPro, I have installed additional mounts and the roof mount already broke, so it's not feasible. But one that actually works are some hidden magnets here, and so I can attach this GoPro directly to the hood, and it makes nice images of the drivers. So that's it for this first round trip. I will make another episode about how I converted the rear of the car to the Traxxas gearbox, and see you there.